We're meeting today on the lands of the Whadjuk people of the Noongar Boodja in Boorloo, Perth, Western Australia. We're from the Australia-Cuba Friendship Society, and we're here today to protest against the blockade on Cuba. This plaque here reminds us that Aboriginal people did not have access to the city in Australia a long time ago. And in 1928, there was a protest here against their restricted movement. And Aboriginal people used to come to the Esplanade, the Swan River, and the bridges across the Swan River to host their protests. And so we thought this was a great place to talk about Cuba and the horrendous, unjust blockade that Cuba has been subjected to for over 60 years. And we're joining people all around the world in a movement that started in the US called the Bridges of Love. These bridges are bridges of solidarity against the blockade on Cuba. We stand with Cuba against the blockade and we say, lift the blockade on Cuba now.
Lift the blockade on Cuba now.
We also say to return Guantanamo Bay to Cuba. Return Guantanamo Bay.
Return Guantanamo Bay.
We also say to the Biden administration to take Cuba off the list of countries that sponsor terrorism. This is the most offensive act of the US, and the only terrorism that happens in Cuba is in Guantanamo Bay, where the US is based illegally.
Exactly.
So take Cuba off the list.
Take Cuba off the list.
And finally, we want to say that we stand in solidarity with Cuba and the Cuban people in their position against the horrible genocide that's happening in Gaza. We stand with the Cuban people. We stand with you.
We stand with the Cuban people. We stand with you in Palestine. Free Palestine.
Free Palestine.
And free Cuba from the inhumane blockade now.
Free Cuba from the inhumane blockade now.
Lift the blockade on Cuba.
Lift the blockade on Cuba.